So you may or may not know, but I am a big fan of video games. I love to play them, I love to talk about them, but maybe most importantly, I like to showcase them off to people and talk about whether or not they seem interesting, what they do that's interesting, or what they might become. So obviously I'm a big fan of demos, and every now and then I get into a mood where I just play a whole bunch of demos. If you check my other videos here, you'll probably notice. And like to just take minutes in between each one and talk with chat or whatever and see what everybody was thinking. So I figured I would start doing a roundup of demos as I play through them and just kind of some thoughts overarching here. I will include links to the full first play of these demos as well in here, so if you want to check any of those out, you can just look in the description. Those will be unlisted, but mostly people don't want to spend time, like an hour, watching somebody play something. They would rather just know what they thought about it, and then maybe from there they'll check it out themselves, but not often. People just want to sit there, so I figured this was probably the best course of action. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, first up we have Quarantine Zone. This is a Papers, Please type like game where you are running a checkpoint at the apocalypse. A zombie outbreak has occurred, and you are checking people to see if they are healthy enough to bring into the quarantine area, or to, if they're not, you can quarantine them, and if they are infected, you can dispose of them. So it's pretty basic at the beginning. You have a menu that you can kind of check off any symptoms that you might have, so it starts pretty easy with like red eyes or gaunt eyes or whatever, scratches on the body, and every symptom has kind of like a severity level. So there are a bunch of things like freckles, for instance, where it says, yeah, that's fine or whatever. That's not really a symptom so much as an attribute, and it shows like a green check mark or whatever, meaning that it's not associated with the with infection. There's a caution mark, like a yellow caution mark for stuff that means it could be that they're infected. It could also just be that they're sick. So like maybe you should want to quarantine them and check them later. And then there's a red one that's basically just like, oh no, they're infected, you need to get rid of them right now. And yeah, you do so from there. That doesn't come until a bit later, but right from the get-go, you're able to put people into quarantine, and if they have any symptoms of the infection, within a day or two, they usually start showing more, and you're supposed to check up on them. If you leave them too long, they will just turn and like kill everybody else in the quarantine area. So you kind of have to make sure you're checking up on them. They start introducing new mechanics, like some survivors will come with backpacks and bags that you also have to check for contraband. And then at some point, they also introduce a bunch of base building stuff, and this is kind of where it lost me. I didn't really like the base building. I thought it was kind of the stuff in between the stuff I like. It feels like they were trying to pad out more gameplay or whatever, which I understand because it is a little basic if you're only looking over people. But then I think about Papers, Please, and you're literally just looking at documents, and they just got more and more involved there. So I think they probably could have done something with that. The base building stuff, I think, drags everything down. And then there's also moments where you get attacked by hordes of zombies, or when you have to escort survivors out, you have to pilot like a drone and like keep everybody safe. And I think those are just kind of abysmal. I don't like those at all, and I think they drag down the whole experience as a whole. There's some good stuff in here, good base, but this definitely seems like something you would pick up for a weekend and then maybe put down, so not a lot of meat on this one for me, but it's kind of cool. It was kind of fun just shooting a bunch of survivors and seeing how many of them were infected at the end of the day. The management stuff, maybe not so much.
Turn back now.
Next. All right, next up is Fretless. Fretless had a pretty fun hand-drawn intro, which immediately got me interested. It has pixel art, which I think I even mentioned while playing it that I'm kind of back into the pixel art thing. I haven't played a lot of games with pixel art lately, or in the last couple of years, so it's always nice to come back to one here and there. Story seems fine, characters seem fun. But the big thing is that I like the combat quite a bit. I'm a big fan of turn-based RPG combat, especially playing stuff like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 being one of my favorite games so far, maybe ever, definitely of this year. And this does a lot of the similar things with timed hits, the mechanic where you press a button to do more damage on attacks or to take less damage on defense. Actually, I think if you defend, you take no damage. I can't remember in this. And all of it's based around the song that's playing, so different enemies have different music associated with them, or maybe it's different areas you play in probably have different music. And that's really cool. So you kind of get really into the theme, and then you're pressing the button accordingly to do more damage or to block damage, which is pretty great. You get different weapons that kind of change the playstyle completely. So you start off with an acoustic guitar, which focuses more on attacks and all that sort of thing, but then you get a bass guitar in this demo a little bit later, and the bass guitar completely flips around the playstyle, where instead of attacking, you're taking shields from enemies or building up shields, and you're building up a meter that you're able to like release to do more damage on certain attacks or whatever. Also, I'm a big fan of the music when you play the bass. I think it's really funky, really cool. I did a boss fight with the bass, and I thought that was incredible. There's some really great stuff going on in there. Overall, it seemed like a really solid choice if you wanted an RPG. Fun little story going on, a lot of music references and stuff like that, so might be worth checking out. One Way Home was one that looked exciting when I saw the trailer. Reminds me of Inside or Little Nightmares, where it's like a 2.5D, 3D sort of side-scrolling ambient horror thing where you're doing puzzles and a creepy atmosphere. It mostly excels, I would say. There are a few optimization issues with this demo that I hope they get patched out. Like, for what I played, my CPU and GPU should definitely not been as taxed as they were. I thought a lot of the background stuff was pretty neat. I thought some of the set pieces were pretty good. I'm not a fan of the main character talking all the time, even though it makes a little bit more sense. The kid is probably talking to himself to like feel better or whatever. I'm more of a fan of the silent protagonist and you just kind of being in these atmospheres, so it kind of takes away from the scare factor when the kid's like, oh no, I'm so scared, or what's going, like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it myself. Not really a knock against it necessarily, but you know, a knock against it I will say though is that I think the jumping feels bad and floaty, and sometimes it just got me stuck in the environment, or I fell through an environment once because I tried jumping accidentally while picking something up. So there are a lot of glitches, a lot of little things that they should work out, but I think it's solid enough that this could be pretty great if they work on it a little bit longer. I'm not really sure when it's supposed to come out, but if you like horror stuff and Little Nightmares and Inside or Limbo or whatever, this might be one to check out.
They seem to be asleep. It's best to avoid waking them up.
Away From Home, another home game, is almost completely different. The first thing that you notice right away is that the pixel art is incredible. I really like the crazy high detailed pixel art style, and this game does that in spades. The characters are super fun, the writing seems pretty funny and good. Got a lot of Earthbound feel from what's going on, because I'm not really sure what's going on in the story, but from everything they tease, you're playing as some kids in a group, and there's some eldritch weird horror stuff going on in the background for sure, something about dreams or whatever. The demo kind of ends with you being teleported to the next part of the game, so there is like a fantasy element or magic element to it, stuff that's going on here. One of the main characters, I don't know if they're a main character or just like an NPC, is a gooner, so that's great, I guess. My big issue, I think, with this game is that the combat is a rhythm, like, RPG sort of thing. So when you get into combat, you're against another character, but your turns are based on you doing like a rhythm game. So you will have notes that you are able to do anything on. You're able to attack, you're able to use items, you're able to use your special attack if it's charged up, and then there will be attacks against you, which will be a different thing, and you have to hit those to make sure that you don't take damage. So what this usually means is that you get into a fight, you don't know the song yet or like the rhythm of anything, and that would be fine if it didn't just barrage you with 100 notes on like the first 2 enemies. So it just seems like it would be really, really difficult right from the get-go, but I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing if you have the patience for it. By the end of the demo, I definitely started getting a feel for it, but there definitely is a learning curve, it seems, especially if it's going to be that difficult right from the get-go. If you don't like rhythm games or aren't decent with rhythm games, this might be one that would just be more infuriating than it's worth, which is too bad because I think it's doing a lot of other cool things in here. Another big problem I had just with the demo, and I'm hoping this isn't the case with the actual game, is that there was no options. So maybe you can turn it down, like accessibility options or something like that for the main game. The big problem, of course, being that depending on what you're playing on, there might be a weird desync, and for a rhythm game, that would definitely be make or break for me. But this is probably one I'm going to be checking out by myself, so I don't know, maybe you'll hear more of it on this channel soon. Final game I checked out in this group here is called Isle of Reveries. Isle of Reveries, right from the get-go, is basically a Legend of Zelda Game Boy game. So if you ever played Link's Awakening, the original, or the Oracle games, you're probably gonna notice a lot of that here. In fact, I believe somebody in my chat referred to it as a Oracle's ROM hack, which isn't necessarily inaccurate, I would say. There is a lot going on in this demo that I thought was really, really good. I thought the writing is okay. I'm a big fan of tragedies, and there's kind of some like tragic backstory with the main character and his mother right from the get-go. The gameplay is straight up just Legend of Zelda fare. The first dungeon that's in the demo leaves a good impression. There's some cool mechanics that you learn right away. The main boss for the dungeon also utilizes your knowledge of everything you've done up until that point, like mechanically and with the enemies in the dungeon or whatever. It's very, very cool. If you're a fan of that old style game, this is one you're definitely gonna have to check out. I think this was like the game of the night for all of us. This is definitely one that I will be playing by myself. Okay, so that's it. After going through all of those, maybe tell me what one did you think looked the most interesting? Which ones are you going to check out? I'm going to be doing more demos on Twitch and here live, and then I'll be trying to throw them together in kind of a recap like this, just for ease of listening and use or whatever. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.